Now, domestic violence, of course, impacts our city every single day.
With victims constantly in the same house with abusers under quarantine, it can be even worse.
It's not just that calls are increasing, but it's the level of violence is escalating.
We were at home all day, every day.
She says the isolation escalated the abuse.
I said something that he didn't like, and he first choked me and pushed me backwards by my neck. And he said, "Go ahead and hit me, bitch. I want to kill you anyway."
We're trying to flatten the COVID-19 curve, but
authorities investigated multiple scenes associated with this one tragedy.
One problem arising from the pandemic is the rise in cases of domestic violence. Now, Mayor Sylvester Turner has announced an initiative.
The message is very clear. The coronavirus, COVID-19, does not give anyone permission to engage in domestic violence.
When we think of first responders or essential workers, many people don't think of places like the Houston Area Women's Center, but they respond to crisis 24/7, making them vulnerable to an outbreak of COVID-19.
We are running a very different operation than normal.
The Houston Area Women's Center had 23 positive cases of COVID-19, 12 staff members, 4 mothers, and 7 children.
They're not able to come out, so everything around food, hygiene, we have to do it for them.
Too many people trapped in a situation.
That's what we're dealing with right now. What we do want survivors to know is help is still available.
It could be a matter of life or death.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for our first ever virtual Believe Luncheon. My name is Emily Whitehurst, President and CEO of the Houston Area Women's Center. We are deeply grateful you have chosen to spend your lunch hour with us. And we hope by the conclusion of today's program, you'll learn and know more about our mission and the survivors we serve. As you just saw, survivors are facing enormous challenges in the wake of this pandemic. Today, you will hear how our amazing staff answered the call, serving as fearless frontline workers to ensure women and children fleeing violence receive safety on demand. Safe from the virus, safe from violence. You'll also hear from our featured speaker, Lorena Gallo, formerly Bobbitt, and her incredible story from national headline to vocal domestic violence survivor and advocate. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner joins us for an important message. And we honor a few of our closest friends, Janora Boykins and Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, for their tireless commitment in our movement to end violence for all. So, on behalf of our staff, board of directors, and most importantly, the clients we serve, thank you for being here today to show survivors of domestic and sexual violence we care and that we believe. Please grab your lunch and enjoy our program.
Hi, hey, how are you? I'm doing well. I brought a few more things for the clients. Is it a new client coming in? Would you be ready to come stay at our program today? She is still concerned for her safety.
My name is Celinda Guerra, and I have been with the organization for almost 18 years. We average about 100 calls daily pre-COVID, so we're pretty busy. A lot of our calls are related to requests for shelter, requests for emotional support. Having to juggle this additional program in addition to our crisis hotline has definitely had its challenges. This program has grown from maybe 3 to 4 placements monthly to over 20 placements monthly. To see the calls are coming in and continue to come in, and the biggest request that we have is for shelter, and maybe running out of that alternative option is one of our biggest fears.
Because it was overwhelming. Like when we first started the Safe Harbor, like how it is now, like functioning now, it was a lot. Like it just two of us doing like all the intakes, and that was like a lot.
One of the shelters that I called did say to contact the Houston Area Women's Center. Contacted them. When I look back, I still don't know that I realized I was going to a shelter, like a shelter for a homeless, like a homeless shelter. Definitely didn't anticipate there were going to be children there. Right there is when it dawned on me, like, I'm in a homeless shelter, essentially, in the middle of a pandemic. So I'm looking at all these people with masks on their faces.
We just knew that we needed to, keep safe. We needed to keep clients safe. We needed to keep the kids safe from this great unknown. Was just kind of standing there like, okay, Mamta, you've got to get it together. You've got a house full of survivors. You've got other team members who need you to anchor in somehow. But how am I going to do this? How are we going to do this? Nothing feels safe, nothing feels the same. What felt chaotic and almost very tornado-like eventually found a center. We were able to, I think as a work family, connect together and get through some of the most difficult times I think we've all experienced in 23 years.
I would rather face contracting COVID and my two daughters burying me because I've contracted COVID than to go back home and the possibility that my daughters bury me because I said the wrong thing to my abuser and he kills me.
Jamie was an absolute sponge. She was so ready to do the soul work that we were about to embark on. I believe a lot of the time our work as advocates and therapists is to plant seeds. Plant seeds of healing, plant seeds of hope, plant seeds of power.
The woman's family tells me she tried to end.
Sadly, this appears because the rise in cases of domestic violence.
People are experiencing domestic violence in a high-risk capacity more than ever, and it's very real. And the support services need to be there. So our job is more important than ever.
Hello, I'm Lisa Ferranda Harper.
And I'm Greg Harper, and we thank you for joining us today. We are honored to be co-chairs for this year's virtual Believe Luncheon, supporting a mission we both so deeply believe. Lisa and I have been longtime supporters of HAWC, and this year I joined its board of directors.
And we are all coming together a little differently this year, but our collective resolve is the same, offering hope and healing and raising critical funds so that survivors of domestic and sexual violence can live free from violence for good.
This year's 2020 virtual Believe Luncheon would not be possible without the generous support of many sponsors and supporters, all of whom rose to the challenge. To you, we say thank you.
To our Believe Luncheon Committee, who answered our call to roll up your sleeves and support HAWC when it seemed uncertain that we could pull off this program.
And to our host committee, who generously rallied behind this mission and this event to support this virtual event, ensuring we got the word out. Lisa and I are grateful for your time, talent, and treasure.
Now, Greg and I have personal convictions about ending violence and supporting survivors because sadly we have witnessed it and experienced it firsthand. We've seen friends affected by violence, and we have shared the invaluable resources HAWC has to offer, knowing this organization is a lifeline.
HAWC's message of believing survivors and that transformative help is available are ones we hope you will take away from today's event.
And again, it is an honor to serve as your co-chairs. And we encourage you to support this mission so that HAWC can continue to help survivors receive real-time response to safety and support in spite of these challenging times.
Hello, this is Mayor Sylvester Turner. The City of Houston is proud to be a long-standing partner
to the Houston Area Women's Center. During these unprecedented times, there have been too many people trapped in dangerous at-home situations in our community. Together with HAWC, we have been on the front lines to identify immediate needs within our community, and we have responded with important life-saving initiatives. The citywide No COVID Abuse campaign quickly addressed the spike in domestic violence reports during the COVID-19 public health crisis, letting survivors know that help and resources were available even in a pandemic. Critical funding allocated through the CARES Act and approved by the City of Houston placed victims of domestic violence in hotels in response to a lack of shelter space. And our work with HAWC continues. As your mayor, I recently approved critical funding to ensure no woman or child fleeing violence and seeking shelter is turned away. HAWC expansion plans are in the works, and I am excited to be a part of it. We know there is a connection between escalating domestic violence and disasters like the 2020 pandemic, so being able to provide these invaluable safety nets means the difference between life and death of members in our community. Thank you, HAWC, for all that you have done. We are in this together, and we must do our part to build a better and safer Houston.
I was really surprised when you reached out to me originally, very humbled by being recognized and honored for just doing what I think is the right thing to do, and that's to make a difference in the lives of others. That's always been part of my ethos, my being, is to really focus on others. And this is one of those organizations, like I said, that does much needed work, that impacts the lives of a lot of people and women of color who look like me. And there was just no way that I could not be involved. And so I am just truly humbled to just be recognized for doing what I think is the right thing to do, and hope that others would be encouraged to get involved and give their time and their talent and their treasure to things that really make a difference in the lives of other people.
Having started as my career with the Houston Police Department in those early years when the Houston Police Department was really starting to grow its intervention when it came to the issue of domestic violence, that for so long had been something that law enforcement saw as something that happened behind closed doors, not for us to intervene, and the law started changing and our commitment started changing, and to be an early kind of witness to that and to now be honored by them is something that I'm just extremely humbled and grateful, and couldn't ask for it to come from a better organization than the Houston Area Women's Center. I'm truly a big fan of their work, and it's just a great honor to be associated with them and also to be receiving this honor.
The tabloids called it the cut heard round the world.
Because people didn't understand, and the only people who did understand was the advocates. My ex-husband used to threaten me and told me many times that whenever I go, he could find me.
Physical abuse, sexual abuse.
I couldn't even save myself by calling the police.
The defense says the years of abuse put her over the edge.
We must show survivors that we believe them so that they can start believing in themselves again.
Lorena Gallo, how are you?
Thank you so much. How are you today? I'm feeling very good, thank you.
You look amazing.
Thank you so much.
I want to set the stage for our virtual audience today. We're honored to have you here, and we're doing things differently, right? Mm-hmm. Normally we would be live in front of 500 to 700 survivors, friends, advocates of the Houston Area Women's Center.
That's right.
I think this is a real opportunity because now we can share your story globally with the world through the Houston Area Women's Center. So we're honored, and this is going to be a great conversation.
I thank you so much for the invitation and to participate in this important event. I think we should have more events like this.
Yeah.
And this is a great opportunity, like you said. because we're reaching out to even more people in situations of domestic violence. It's very important.
In very challenging times. So we're setting the stage here in an unusual place, but a place that I thought could offer an opportunity for you to really be in your own shoes. This is our shelter's bedroom, one of many quads we call it. We have 4 bunk beds. Typically we'll have a mom and 3 kids, 2 ladies, 2 singles, but this is it. You know, this is how you escape violence and you come to start a life anew. So when you're in this sort of 4-walled, small, simple, clean room, what goes through your mind? What are your thoughts about being a survivor of domestic violence and knowing that opportunities like this response in crisis and this safe refuge are available to women and children who are escaping abuse?
I think this is very important that women should know that help is there. I think it's very important that not to lose hope in people like shelters like this, the Houston area Women's Center, who is offering a place, a safe haven for women to escape domestic abuse. We're talking about 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago, when my case happened. We didn't really have many shelters available back then, but now we do. We didn't even have many resources either, and now we do.
So let's talk about a little bit of that trauma back then. Surviving 4 years of domestic and sexual violence at the hands of your ex-husband. Very explicit stories that you told in court back then that was really revealed in the documentary that many of us didn't see. Threats of deportation, something that our clients see a lot. An immigrant young woman who is afraid to go to police, who has language barriers, who didn't have the support. Share with us what that was like back then. And then secondly, the trauma that was building in you or that was existing in you at the time.
Well, we have to remember domestic violence is rooted in power and control. So my abuser, my ex-husband, back then, that's exactly what we did. He tried to control my life, he tried to control it many times, and part of that control was basically letting me know that as an immigrant woman, coming from South America, he was going to call the police every time if I wanted to call the police before to say, well, you know, this is wrong what you're doing, you are abusing me, you are sexually assaulting me. But he was the one who said, I'm going to call the police to have you deported, to have you taken back to your own country. So I was living in fear. I was trapped, and the traumatic effect that I have, psychologically, emotionally, I couldn't even save myself by calling the police because I knew that my husband instilled in my head that the police is going to deport me from the United States and send me back to my place of origin. So it was very scary. I couldn't even call.
When you were going through your survival abuse, then you've got the trial and this big media circus, this international trial, and I mean that to me has some parallels of what a survivor may be going through right now, right? Like, I have to live with COVID and then I have to be alone with my abuser and I have no way out. Back then, you had no way out of a trial. You were gonna lose everything and you were still suffering from the trauma of getting out of an incredibly abusive situation.
That's right. Domestic violence is a social epidemic. We always deal with it since generations back when, you know, our grandparents before that, you know, who knows, right? I come from a machismo society, and so we never really learned to, we'd rather accept that, you know, it's our fault. It's our fault all the time. Whatever happened to us, whatever abuse we get, is basically our fault. Something that we did wrong. I think it's very important to remember that we are living a social epidemic in the middle of a viral COVID-19 pandemic. And it's very difficult for women now even more to escape domestic abuse. There's people losing their jobs, there's people with alcohol problems, there's people buying more firearms or guns because there's a lot of stress and uncertainty because we are living this trauma of COVID-19. But also we have to remember, the people who are trapped in domestic abuse situations with this pandemic going on. It's really even more dangerous for them to escape.
What do you tell young girls? You have a daughter yourself, and obviously you're breaking that cycle for her. Clearly you don't want her to be in the same situation.
Absolutely.
When you tour, and I know you go to colleges and speak as an advocate, as an activist, what do you tell young girls who might be navigating healthy relationships and signs of abuse? What do you share with them?
I tell them my story. I simply do, and I'm very open to them. I tell them my story from the very beginning. When I came to this country as an immigrant, young woman, I was 18 years old when I came to this country, so young, and I was married. Don't forget this. I was married when I was 19, and statistically speaking, most of the people who are abused, the young girls, are from ages from 19 to 25. Guess what? That's college age. Yeah. So that's just amazing. So I go and tell my story, and I believe that education comes at home. Education comes from home. I think it's the best thing to educate our children, little girls, little boys. It's very important to start these candid conversations with our children at a very early age. Yeah. Since they were babies, since they start to actually go to kindergarten. Mm-hmm. I talked to my daughter since she was that age, in elementary school. Never miss an opportunity to talk to them when the time is right. As a parent, I think it's very important to know your child, to know the maturity, how they can handle things. Obviously, I didn't throw anything. I didn't open Pandora's box on my daughter. Mm-hmm. I only tell her specific things because I knew my daughter. I knew how she's going to handle. She was actually very mature since she was little. She's the only child, so she's always around with adults. And so I think it was very important to know your child, and have those candid conversations.
Do you think that we've moved beyond the I'm going to blame Lorena for severing her husband's penis if this happened today? Do you think we've made progress? And if so, what more progress should we be making in this society?
I think we did make a ton of progress because what I see through the years, and this is very important, the reason why I have actually become an advocate, and is because there's a lot of progress. Advocates have worked so hard to change laws, and activists as well, and I'm proud of that. But at the same time, there's so much more work to be done. And that's when I become more aware of the problems, because we have to fill in those gaps that they're not filling. We have to bridge those gaps, right, in order to help more victims and survivors. Because we have to remember every 9 seconds a woman or a victim in general is victimized by their partners. Every 9 seconds. That really opened my eyes more, and I said, most be done. Most have to be done in order to help more survivors, in order to help more victims to escape domestic violence. So that's what I became an advocate.
Lorena Gallo, I really appreciate you flying to Houston, albeit socially distanced and safe, to be with us.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to introducing you to our staff and our clients. Yes. Just quickly, if you could say something to a survivor who might be watching this and might be contemplating leaving or getting help, what would that message be?
I would say that you're not alone. I would say that you are believed. I would say that there's always people to help you. always find a place to confide in somebody, whether it is your family, your friends, your neighbor, or just find the strength, because you have a resilience. Believe it or not, you're resilient, and you can pick up the phone and make that phone call to the nearest shelter, to the hotline, to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or call Houston Area Women's Center, who are available 24 hours, 7 days a week. And it's amazing the help that you are going to have there. People are going to believe you, and you're not alone. Silence is never going to be an option. That's what I would tell them. There's a lot of resources and there's a lot of options you can do. You can escape and be free of domestic violence.
And if Lorena Gallo can do it,
yes,
so can you.
From Lorena Gallo to the dramatic story you heard from Jamie. Like COVID-19, domestic violence is a public health crisis, a pandemic. It affects entire communities, from children to bystanders and first responders. It spills into our criminal justice system, our schools, our workplaces, and our healthcare system. Make no mistake, domestic violence is everyone's problem. Every 9 seconds in this country, someone is being abused. Here in Houston, calls to our domestic violence hotline have surged since COVID began. And we are receiving awful reports that the abuse is becoming more violent as families come under even more stress during these challenging times. As we continue to safely house survivors in unprecedented numbers, the demand for safe refuge will continue and will quite likely rise. Earlier this year, HAWC's leadership came together with a bold plan that will allow us to prevent and respond to the epidemic of domestic violence on a scale that we have not been able to achieve before. It is a great plan. We are very lucky to have the City of Houston as our partner in this, and we will be sharing the exciting details with you in the coming months. A special thanks to Mayor Turner for being our incredible ally and champion, and helping to bring about real change that is going to have a tremendous impact on the lives of some of the most vulnerable and resilient people in our community, the survivors we serve. We can't do this alone. We are all in this together. Won't you join us in our movement to end domestic and sexual violence for all? You will hear from us soon. Stay tuned.
As you have seen and heard today, the need is great. Please consider making a difference in the lives of survivors with a contribution. We shared a text to give, or you can head to hawc.org.
And that is a wrap for the 2020 Believe Luncheon. Save the date for the 2021 Believe Luncheon for Wednesday, April 7th. On behalf of Lorena Gallo, who shared her brave story, HAWC, my husband, its board of directors, the staff and survivors, we thank you.